Welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Thursday, September 21st. We are here live. I'm going to open the phone lines up right now. It is time for a free-for-all. Anything goes. If you have a question, a comment, a topic, anything at all you want to talk about, jump in and join us. Lines are open, 855-950-3835. I am back in the studio today. We were on the road this week, up in the northern country, close enough to holler to our Canadian neighbors up there. We had a great trip. Got to visit with my son and his family. That was nice. It was too short, too hectic, but that looks like our schedule for the fall right now. So we just got back in time. I have to do a short show today. I'll be doing an hour. Then we go to Rolling Toe, and then we are done for the day. We have got to sign all the closing documents today on the new homestead. So we're excited about that. We've got to get ready for the big fall trip. We've got a lot going on. Other than that, I have been very focused on the economy. I think we might finally be seeing some signs of where we're going with this, and we might be able to make some sense of it. Hold on one second here. I remember I was trying to figure where this quote came from. You know, next year we've got an election. It's kind of a big thing. It seems like it's always election cycle. But I was trying to remember. I knew there was a saying, and I thought it was around the Clinton time, and it was. So the saying that I remembered was, "The economy's stupid." That was coined by James Carville, if you remember him, in 1992. Carville was the strategist for Bill Clinton's 92 presidential campaign, and he won. And it was about the economy, and many times elections are. If you think about the last election, no matter what you believe about what happened, whether you believe it was real or not, and fair, seems like there's an awful lot of evidence that maybe it wasn't, but we're never going to change that. Had the economy done what everybody expected it should have done, there may have been a different outcome. But the economy was still strong. You know, it was a weird time, obviously, but we still had a strong economy. And really today, in a lot of ways, we still have a strong economy. You can't find enough workers. There are shortages of things. Prices are going up. So when prices are going up, people getting paid are probably getting paid more, but you're getting pinched on the other end with expenses. But for the most part, nobody's really suffering from a poor economy. If you want a job, you can have 3 of them. If you want a couple of jobs and work the gig economy, you can. So you don't really feel a recession when there's this much work available, and the work is paying pretty well. But I think that's about to end. That we've been wondering what will finally end this run-up, and I think we've figured it out. I really do think that we're about to see the end of it. So Noel Perry wrote a good paper, and I just got it this morning. I was thinking about this and working on it and trying to find some data, and I got up this morning, and sure enough, Noel came through. I had an email there. So he goes back. I sort of remembered a lot of these dates, but some of them are early for me. He went back all the way to 1960. And he looked at when recessions happened, and they primarily happen about every 10 years. And we've talked about that. And the theory is that we have a good economy that gets started, and we produce and we buy and we produce and we buy. And it takes us about 10 years, and we start to get worried that maybe we're spending too much. And then we all start to pull back on our spending, and that's what creates a recession. That's the theory. Economics are incredibly complicated. I don't pretend to even understand half this stuff. I try to read people that do kind of understand it, but it's really complicated. So he went back, and since 1960, there were only a couple exceptions on the 10-year rule. We had a recession in 1970. I don't really remember that. I was 7 years old. So that one happened 10 years after the one prior. So that was what we call cyclical. Happened right when we thought it was. We did have a recession in 1975, though, 5 years. That was quick. But that was because of the oil situation at the time. OPEC and oil prices going way up and shortages. I do vaguely remember the gas rationing. I think it was either based on your last name or your license plate or something. You could only buy gas every other day. That was weird. And we were told in 1975 that the world was out of oil and we were all going to freeze and starve to death. Turns out that obviously wasn't true because we have more oil now than we know what to do with. And we need to start doing something with it as part of the problem here. The U.S. needs to go back to producing a lot of energy, but I don't see that happening. So after 1975, we did have one in 1980, and that was really cyclical if you skip the one in 1975. So it happened in 70 and 80. We had that 10-year cycle. The problem was we had that goofy oil embargo in the middle of that. Then things really got weird. In 1982, we had another one. And that was because of the Fed and deregulation of some big industries really created a lot of havoc in our economy. So here's what I was used to as I was growing up and getting jobs and trying to get out into the workforce. 3 recessions within 7 years, and that's when I was graduating. And I've talked about this. In 1981, when I graduated, it was not unusual to go fill out, people are going to think I'm insane. You would go fill out 30 applications to get one phone call for a minimum wage job. That's not an exaggeration. And by the way, you didn't get to go online and fill out the applications. You had to drive around to the physical locations and by hand sit there and fill out the application over and over and over. And there were just no jobs. And again, I'm talking about minimum wage jobs you would fill out this many applications to get, working in a grocery store or a restaurant. It was a very difficult economy. I was in Northeast Ohio, and most of the people I knew at the time were leaving and going to Oklahoma and Texas because during that time we did have an oil boom. So there was good economic activity in the Southwest, and there were jobs, and they were building houses, and it was a very, very difficult economy. And now I kind of see why. I didn't really remember this jumble of 3 recessions from 1975 to 1982. Then we got a pretty normal cycle for a long time, and that's been most of our everybody listening to me, most of our working career. We've had pretty stable economies since about 1982 when we came out of, and we've talked many times about that one. That one was bad. That one was what created what we call stagflation, where the economy sucks, you can't get a job, and prices are still going through the roof. Mortgage rates of 18%. If that happened today, almost nobody would be able to buy a house with housing prices the way they are. It was a really crazy time. Now, I've also talked about if you had cash during that time, it was a pretty incredible time. I've told the story about my brother-in-law that taught me how to do body work and paint cars. And he became a millionaire, multimillionaire doing body work. One, he was really good at it and he was really fast. And the interesting thing about body work is you get paid kind of by the hour, but not by the hour you work. You get paid by the number of hours the job was quoted for. So if you have a job that's quoted for 10 hours and you do it in 5, you still get paid 10 hours. And you have 5 more hours to go do it again. On the other hand, if you screw up and you have to redo it and it takes you 12, you're still only getting paid for 10. But he was really good at what he did, and he hustled and he made a lot of money, but he really managed his money well. And his timing was good. He was still young then. He would have been in his early 20s in the 1980s when he was teaching me. And I remember him telling me about CDs, certificates of deposit. You went down and you bought a CD at a bank, and you locked up your money for a year, 6 months, or 3 years, whatever the term was, and they paid you a set guaranteed amount of interest. And they were very popular then because they were paying 10% interest. 10%. If you had $100,000 to put in a CD for a year, you got $10,000 in growth. That's incredible. Almost never happens in any economy. But it happened for a while back then. So remember, bad economies also come with big opportunities usually. So that was our last really bad recession. And again, it feels like almost bookends for me. I don't want to say I'm at the end of my career because I don't think I'm anywhere near it. But, it's 40 years later. I went through it when I was just starting into the business world and work. And now it feels like we might be setting up for something like that again. Here's what Noel thinks. So let me continue going through these. At 1990, we had a normal recession. I was 4 years into being an owner-operator. And I remember that one. It hurt. It hurt bad. That was the one that really started the downturn for me. I had been building trucks in 1990. I had 11 trucks. We had the brokerage. We had a service truck. I was in business with one of my brothers. And we struggled. And we ended up dissolving that company and selling off most of the trucks. And he kept a couple and I kept a couple. And we went back to saving our businesses and our finances, but it was a tough time. Then we had another one right around 2000, just about exactly 10 years when we expected it. By that time, I was much more stable in my business, and my personal finances were pretty solid around then. So I got through the 2000 recession without a big problem. Then we hit 2009, right there about that 10-year mark again, right when we expected it. That was a pretty bad one, and it wasn't a great time for me either. I had gone through a divorce and gave up a business and sold another one and wasn't sure what I was going to be doing. It started the radio show in 2007, so I was kind of focused on that. But that was that was a little more of a tough one for me. We struggled a little bit through that, trying to build a new business. And ever since 2009, I've been trying, and I can remember coming out of that one saying, I need to be better prepared for the next one. We know they're coming, so what do you do to get prepared for these things? And it was when I really got serious about really starting to manage the business and manage money. And Lisa took over all of that, so that helped too. I know the theory of how to manage money. I don't do it all that well in the real world. I tend to be way too much of a risk taker, and I don't really care about the downside that much, and I don't like following rules. So I know all the theories on how you should manage money, but I let Lisa do it because she's much better at it. So we've been hyper-focused since then, building a business, but doing it this time what I consider to be the right way, slowly, and really watching the pennies and really, being careful. If you're going to use debt, use it carefully and pay it off as quick as possible and start stacking up pennies until pennies become dollars and start stacking up dollars till they become thousands and tens of thousands and then wait for the opportunity. And I've been talking about this for a long time, since about 2018, because 2009 we came out of the last recession. 2018, actually 2017, I think I remember really starting to talk about helping people get ready. How many times did I say pay down debt, save cash? And I was saying in 2017, you probably didn't have much time. I was really, really wrong about that one. We've had crazy economic growth since 2017. But unfortunately, along with that comes crazy inflation. And that's our problem right now. I was actually a little worried about all the cash I had. That's why we bought this property. I wanted to convert a lot of that cash into hard assets, which is what we've done. I'd much rather be holding a real estate portfolio during an inflationary time rather than cash. If you think about it, your cash is worth less every day when inflation is happening. But if the prices of everything are going up, then your hard assets, appreciable assets, go up with it. And that seems to be what's happening to real estate. Now, there is still a strong possibility of a real estate bubble bursting. There's some reasons why it's not, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. I still think it could. So then real estate even becomes tricky. You have to watch your timelines and why you're buying the real estate. This property, it fits so many things and so many reasons. That's why we bought it, even though we weren't really in the market for something like this right now. For us, it's a lot of things. It's a lifestyle. I want to be more active. I want more work to do around the property. I don't want to get lazy and not do things and retire the way most people do. Or even, again, I'm using the word retire. I doubt that I ever will. But even just slowing down a little and, looking to spend more time doing other things, that's a big part of this property. I do think the property in today's market was a bargain. It's a weird property, so it didn't get a ton of offers, but I think it's a bargain. But I also think that it could lose a lot of value. If we have a bubble burst, we might. But I don't care. This is not a property that I ever plan on selling. I will pass this property down. I've made the statement that my kids are getting nothing. But something like this, I would like to see stay in the family. So, and on top of that, like I said, I just think that this particular property makes a lot of sense if the wheels come off. But I do believe that I've got to be careful with real estate in the next couple of years. So we're looking at our other properties. We're in a good position on most of them. We have just about everything paid for. So we wouldn't have to sell anything. And if we did, we would always end up with cash. So a couple more things here, and then I do need to start getting to some calls. They're starting to pile up on me, and we've only got an hour. But I wanted to get through this because I think it's important, and it's the first time I've really seen Noel commit to what he thinks is coming. And I understand why. The signs have been very confusing. So after 2009, we expected a downturn around 18 or 19. It never came. It could have been late. We really expected it to happen then in 2020, but we know why it didn't occur then. The shutdowns and the stimulus. So now Noel is looking at all of that data, and he thinks 2024 is the year of the recession. And then he outlines, 3 different types. Here's, let me go through some of the reasons why and some of the other things we need to be aware of in our economy. Debt exposure. A decade of very low interest rates has contributed to a worrisome expansion of debt to include many banks and even the federal government. Most of that debt has interest of less than 3%, and rates are climbing. The cost of that debt is going to double. That we've already seen some bank failures, and this is why. So that's worrisome. That's another reason why it's getting harder and harder to find a place to park your assets. Like I said, you should have been paying off debt and saving cash. You should absolutely still be saving off. Well, Now I have to think about that. If you've got debt at 2 or 3%, I wouldn't be paying it off. I'd be saving cash if you don't have enough. And when I say, you have to be careful about saving cash, I'm talking about, getting up to the 100,000 or more mark. You should absolutely have cash available, emergency fund kind of cash, 10, 20, 30,000, whatever you need to get you through, times of very, very low income. But other than that, I don't think it's a good time to be holding on to a lot of excess cash. But it's getting more and more difficult to figure out what to do with it. China has a horrible problem with risk because of debt right now. And we do have to be concerned about even our enemies and what happens in their economy because it affects us. And that's the next point Noel makes, is that a global recession is very, very likely. And it may happen before the U.S. recession, and it may be the cause of the U.S. recession. So China, Russia, and much of Western Europe are on the brink of recession right now, probably a bad recession. That might be what triggers our issues. Oil shock. Crude prices are up $20 just since a couple months ago. It's not going to take much more of an increase for that to have a big impact on the economy. And we've seen that in the past. And then we have another big one, and that's war. We have a war in Europe, and it's not good. And we are on the brink of another war in Taiwan. China looks like it might want to try to take over Taiwan, and Biden has already committed us to that war if it happens. The news isn't good. It's really just not. We've been saying this for a long time. It hasn't gotten any better. A lot of these things are coming to a head. The next thing that Noel talks about, and I'm just going to do this pretty quickly, he talks about 3 different recessions. A very mild recession, which we kind of just had. We did go through that 2-quarter period, and it technically qualified as a recession. And we thought that was the start of it, and then we came back out of it again. There's too much money still floating around. So we could have a light one where it lasts maybe a year and it's not all that deep, or we could have a really bad one. And then obviously it could be something in between, which most of them tend to be. Noel seems to be leaning towards that it might not be that bad. I hope he's right. He's thinking it might be somewhere in the middle, not really an easy one, not a soft landing, but not devastating. I'm hoping we don't have something like the early 80s. And that's why this inflation talk is worrisome, and how we're starting to feel like there is a little bit of stagflation going on. Prices keep going up, but the economy doesn't look as good as it should, maybe. So we will keep an eye on it. That is, like I say, the first really strong indicator from Noel I've seen on when this is happening. And he didn't even give us really a time yet in 2024. He's just predicting sometime in 2024. Let's get to some phone calls. Let's get started in Oklahoma. Paul, welcome to the program.
Howdy. I got a few things, but I'll be real quick.
All right.
The oil embargo days in New Zealand, you had to select a day. You chose a day that you would not drive your car, and you went to the post office and they give you a sticker and you put it on the middle of the windshield on the top there so they could see it. Each day was a different color. So my father went out and bought a second car, which was a Fiat Bambina. I think it had a 3-cylinder engine.
Yeah.
Suicide doors.
Yeah.
So it didn't really achieve anything because every day he still drove a car. So another stupid political idea.
I actually remember up until that point, and my dad, when I was graduating, was probably in his mid to late 40s. I was the last of 7. So in his 40s at some point, it was the first time he ever bought a new car. I remember it. And he bought a Volkswagen Rabbit diesel. He had always wanted a diesel. He actually had wanted, one of the older Mercedes diesels, the 300Ds, the sedans. He loved those cars, would never spend the money to buy one. And he bought that Rabbit diesel. And he actually hated it. He didn't like small cars, and he hated that car. But that thing got 55 miles to the gallon in 1981. I did it on a trip from Cleveland down to Columbus. It was a junior or senior in high school. Senior. Would have been 81. I got 55 miles to the gallon going to on a longer trip with that thing. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So, some people say that the USA will collapse from within. Well, yesterday I went to the Oklahoma State Fair, and I have a theory. The health and well-being of the general public is terrible.
It is.
So it's going to get to
bad.
a point. It's going to get to a point where the people that are able to work or want to work are not going to be able to support the people that can't or won't.
Yeah, that's a good point.
People are just fat, obese, sickly, pasty, anemic, you name it, they got it going on.
And let's think about something. Let's think about something. How are they able to go on? And here's why. Because the government pays for everything and takes care of them. The government's already paying for their health insurance. So they run to the doctor whenever they feel like it. They don't bother driving to the doctor. They call the ambulance because it's more convenient.
Yeah.
And they never pay for any of this stuff. Their food is subsidized. The food that's killing them is being subsidized. These people would never have been able to get this sick and dumb without the government's help.
Yeah, well, some people have succeeded doing it, and it was Seniors Day yesterday, and I said to my wife, and she's a long way from healthy, but she's a long way ahead of a lot of the younger people,
which is scary.
Like for health wise, because I said there'll probably be lots of scooter chairs there. I said, but the old people, they still look healthier than some of the younger people, and we were looking around and. It's scary to look at some people. It's like, my God.
You know what's really scary?
Last time you seen son was 3 days after you got born and came home from the hospital.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. You know what else is scary? I watched a commercial the other day, and I have no idea what the commercial was for, but it was a bunch of maybe 10-year-old kids running. And they chose non-typical kids. So there might have been, 10 or 12 kids in this shot running. All of them were thin. Well, that's not typical.
Yep.
If you show me a picture of 11 kids, about half of them should at least be overweight, visibly overweight, because those are the numbers today.
Yep.
But they cherry-picked this. They had skinny kids, and they were running. But what was incredible is they didn't know how to run. I've never seen such awkward kids in my life. They could not run properly.
Yeah, well,
all I remember about being a kid is I ran everywhere. I ran all the time.
Yeah.
I ran constantly. Yeah. When I played, I ran. When I went to my friend's house, I ran. I ran all the time. I look at these kids, they don't even know how to run properly.
Yeah, goofy. So my wife said to me yesterday, she said, you kind of look athletic when you're in this crowd. I'm not a big guy, but I pretty much look like an athlete yesterday compared to the rest of them. So,
hey, you're kind of like Indiana Jones. You got the accent and everything.
Yeah, it's still a good conversation starter. So.
That's right.
So you had a caller last week on the Spaces show on Friday, and he was obviously a car hauler, and he was talking about taking a head rack off a Peterbilt and putting on a Volvo. My suggestion to him is do not even try it.
So
I know a guy took a head rack off of. Yeah, well, it's a car hauler. Oh, yeah, it does not work real. It's not cost effective.
So here is my thought.
Because he'll have to make modifications. You'll end up spending $20,000.
I'm glad you called.
Be without the truck for 6 weeks.
As he was saying that, I was just trying to think logically. I have zero experience with this. I've never been asked about it. I've never talked about it. But I was just trying to think logically. That frame has to be built very close to the specs of the cab itself. And all these cabs are wildly different. And I just thought to myself, what are the odds that you're going to be able to pull one of these things off one truck and put it on a completely different truck? The modifications are going to be insane, was in my mind, but I thought, I'm not going to say anything because I don't know. I'll just wait and see what the answer is.
Well, because if he gets a Volvo, if he gets a VAH, the front bumper to back of cab distance is different. So where it mounts on the front, that's going to be different. So all that going to have to be changed. If he got a VNL or a VNR, that's a setback front axle. All that had to be changed. And my
That's what I
recommendation
thought.
is,
Yeah.
It'll end up costing them 15 or 20 grand easily.
My thought was, this is like trying to change engines in trucks. Yes, we can do it. Of course we can, but we almost never recommend it. You could say, oh, but come on, you just build this hose and fabricate that. Sure, we can do all of that stuff, but it's not cost effective. Just go buy another truck. Yeah. It's much, much cheaper to go buy another truck than to think you're going to put a different engine in the truck you have. The story I try to tell was Alan Kim Emerson's truck that Pittsburgh Power did. They were taking out an emissions 14-liter Detroit and replacing it with the same engine, a 14-liter Detroit, but it was non-emission. It took Pittsburgh Power like 3 weeks and a lot of money to make that swap.
Yeah. And now they drive a Volvo.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, he can do it if he wants to, but I'm pretty sure Cottrell will say, yeah, we're not interested in that job. And I can tell him of a couple of shops that would do it, but he'll need a pile of cash because it won't be cheap.
Well, good. I'm glad we got the answer. That was my feeling, but I wasn't going to say anything because I didn't know for sure.
Okay, I'll let you go. No, you got a short show.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for the call. Let's go to Mississippi. Mark, welcome.
Good morning. Hey, last week I took the week off and I went to California. And I don't know if you remember me telling you about last year. I tried to climb Mount Whitney, and I went 6 miles in the trail camp, failed, came out. Took me a long time, from 1 a.m. to about 8 in the evening.
Yeah,
7 in the evening.
I remember.
Well, I went out there, and the last Tuesday I was going to do one mountain, but there's a road involved, and I didn't have a spare in the rental car, so I went to Independence and I hiked up Tuesday to Kearsarge Pass, which is about a 8.5, 9 mile round trip to acclimate, and to almost 12,000 feet. And so then Wednesday of last week, I got up. I stayed in the hotel because the last time I didn't get good sleep, and so I got good sleep. And to make a long story short, I bought the correct equipment. It was not cheap. I camped at trail camp. I started about 10 o'clock in the morning and got up to trail camp, which is 6 miles in on the Whitney Trail, about an hour before sunset. So I put my tent up and filtered water because you just water all along the way and you can filter water. And so a week ago today, I got up at 3:30 in the morning. And I laid there, and just like when you get up and you got to unload cars, the mountain's not going to climb itself, and the cars aren't going to unload themselves. So I did it. I went up there and I hiked up, and I got there about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning at the summit. And it was like I have one of these jet boil propane
little camp
and
stoves,
I made coffee up there, and I sat there. Yeah, I sat up there and I drank coffee. I stayed up there for about 35, 40 minutes and, took pictures and whatnot. And, the only thing I ate on those trails, the Tuesday and that one was boiled eggs, meat sticks, and Benny Torrich's Ultra Fat. That's all I had. And I didn't even eat a lot of that.
Isn't that awesome?
And like there were people eating oatmeal, and there were people eating oatmeal and cooking all this carb shit and all this crap and freeze-dried stuff. And, my mountaineering guy, he was like, you could take this. And I said, no, because he sells Benny's Ultra Fat in there. And I'm like, I just took all of that, and I said, I'm just going to use my stove to make coffee with because that's what I want. And I put electrolytes, I put Keto Chow electrolytes in all my water, and I really took a lot of magnesium. And cardio miracle before I went up. I kind of doubled up on all of that.
Yeah.
I took two or three scoops that morning before I left, and I had a couple of extra packs of the little sticks, and I took that up there. And I wanted to camp that Thursday night at trail camp just because you don't get in the mountains all the time. And
Right.
my pass was good for all of that, but the weather was moving in, so I came on out. So I did over 14 miles that day.
Wow.
And I came on out and the 6 miles out, and I can tell you that it's something that, like, when I left a year ago, it's like I felt defeated. I felt like I lost. And I said to myself coming down that mountain that day a year ago, I said, I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
So I had a 2-hour consult with Vinny because he does that. And I worked on things. And like the last month, I pretty much didn't eat any carbs, and I ate extremely low carb. I had a few potatoes the morning before I went up, and with the breakfast, because I went and bought an omelet and bacon and just drank coffee. And I'm telling you, it's like I didn't have I've never, since I've been going into the mountains, have had out. I think it's because of how I eat. I don't know. I talk to people get it all the time, and I've never had it. And I've got this Garmin Phoenix watch, so I watched my heart rate the whole way up. And when it would get to like in the 140s, and it stayed in the 130s and 120s the whole time, up and down, less going down. And I watched my heart rate, and when it got high, I would stop. I would let it drop, and then I would continue on. I wouldn't sit down. I would just sit there and breathe, and then I would continue. And I'm not sure if that's what helped me do it and all of that. But I can tell you, when Paul was talking about how people are unfit, people can't do this, what I did. They're just, they're not going to be able to. And it's like, I did over 30 miles in 3 days.
That's incredible.
At anywhere from 80, because you start Whitney at 8,500, and you go to 14,505, and you start at Kearsarge and Onion Valley at a little higher than that, and you go to, and so you're at higher altitudes.
Yeah.
And, so that's what I did last week.
That's awesome.
And, and it was, and it's now I want to go back because it's like there's other ones out there I want to do, and it's just like, when you get up, I'm gonna tell you this: when you get to the top and you get there, and then there's little increments along the way where you're like, I'm making this, I'm doing this, and I had to use micro spikes at one area, which are like chains on a truck, and you get up there and you sit there and you know what you did, and when you come down, you just have this feeling of gratitude and victory, and it's almost like you win the Super Bowl.
I'll bet.
It's like
that's a hell of an accomplishment.
It's hard to describe. It's hard to describe, but it just goes to show you that you have to do something like that. And there were people that dropped out. I mean, there were people that complained about altitude sickness because I talked to everybody along the way, and then I was with some people. I started, and you merged with people because I was by myself, but there were some people from the Washington, and they were talking about they did this in Washington. And this one guy woke up, and he's like, I can't go up. My legs are locked up. I can't go up. I'm just going to sit here while everybody else goes. And, and people were slow, and people, it just, and I just think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm active in my work, and I really got strict on my diet, really strict the last month before I did it. But so many things have to go right to be able to. You pass. You have to get the permit. The weather has to cooperate. I was coming down that Kearsarge Pass, and I was wearing different shoes, and I stepped on a rock, and I rolled my foot, and it was like I sat there for 15, 20 minutes going, and I'm like, man, I hope I didn't do that, because that would be like I would have to cancel. But everything worked out, and and now it's like you just get this confidence that you can do a lot of things because you sit there for a year and you think about this almost every day. It's like something you really want to do, and you want to get up there and you want to see what it looks like and just experience it, and it's like an inner battle with yourself. And I don't know. I just thought I'd share it with you that
absolutely
ended up taking place, and it happened. So
what's interesting is when you're exerting yourself now and you've been eating this way, you will find that you perform better at everything without food. We're so brainwashed into this. We have to have food, you have to have energy, you have to have carb load. You really don't, and it really hurts your performance. I think back to something in high school, and I can't believe I was this dumb that I didn't figure this out. So, our culture is you eat at least 3 meals a day and you snack every chance you get. I mean, that's our culture, and it has been the whole time I was growing up. And we're kind of brainwashed into that. So my junior year of high school, I went to a vocational school, and it was a joint vocational school that served like 8 different high schools. So I had to drive like 20 minutes to the school every day, or there was a bus, but I drove. And I spent all day at that school, but then I would come back to my high school for sports. And it was wrestling season. And I was used to, in our high school, we had open lunch. You could leave, you could go eat wherever you want, you could go home, you could go to a restaurant, you could go do whatever you want at lunch. And I was used to that. So I never worried about, do I have lunch money, or, I never packed a lunch. I would mostly either go home or go to a fast food restaurant. And I wasn't thinking. I was in this other school. They didn't have an open lunch in the vocational school. You had to stay on the property. And I just didn't have any money some days. I would just forget about it. And of course, if I didn't have any money, I wasn't going to eat lunch. Every day that happened, I performed significantly better in wrestling. Every time, and it was noticeable. And I would think to myself, well, that's weird. Yeah. I'm starving, and yet I'm doing better. But it never dawned on me to actually do that. If I do better every day that I skip lunch, why didn't I just start skipping lunch?
Yeah, a week ago today, I woke up at 3:30. I laid there. Well, I got to get going. I took my egg cooker with me. I bought, the pastured eggs. I ran to Bishop and got Advance and got pastured eggs. And so I cooked a dozen the day before, the night before that I left. And so they were cold. And of course I ate 4 eggs, and then I put 3 in my pocket, and the rest were in the backpack. So I carried them with me, but I ate 4, and I went up and I made a pot of coffee and drank it at the summit. And I came back down almost 2 miles down, and I stopped, and we're talking to these women from the Bay Area about Yosemite. And I drank more water with electrolytes. I didn't make coffee, but I ate the 3 eggs in my pocket. And I didn't eat till I got back to a hotel room about 10 o'clock that night. And then I ate some more meat sticks and a couple of more eggs. But that's all I ate on the trail. I mean, doing all of that at altitude. And there were people that were eating oatmeal and this, that, and the other. And somebody took a crap that I apparently passed coming down because it was not there where I went up, and just left a mess, because you're supposed to use wax bags and all like that. Yeah. And that's because people have bad diets.
Absolutely.
I didn't even do number 2 on the mountain. I took all these Wagga bags. Here I got to go or whatever, but I didn't end up going, probably because I ate so low carb that I didn't have anything really in me to let go of, but I just urinated along the way. And, and then like I said, I piled on the electrolytes, and I think that kept me hydrated for most of the way. And,
there you go.
And that same diet works here at sea level. And
of course.
That people don't do it. And like Paul said, you see these people, and they're terribly unhealthy and all like that. So, I guess I would like to tell this to Dr. Wilson, but I'm guessing my heart's in pretty good shape to be able to do that for 3 days.
Oh, absolutely. So, all right. Hey, I got to move along. Great stuff. I agree. We're so brainwashed into just thinking we need food all of the time. And the truth is, in many cases, we perform better without it. Fasting is a pretty powerful strategy for a lot of things. Let's go to Idaho this time. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, hey, Kevin. Hey, congratulations to that guy that was just on. I remember that call from last year.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think it almost killed him last year. I remember him saying he's going to do it next year. He's going to do it different. And yeah, good for him.
And listen to the
him.
difference. What a change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He was dejected last time, and now he's excited. Now he's all excited and wants to share with everybody, which is way cool.
There's a great metaphor here for life, and I talk about this all the time. I was just talking about it to somebody again yesterday. Well, it doesn't matter. So, the year and honestly, last year was a damn good attempt. I mean, it's nothing to, certainly be disappointed with, but he was. Because he didn't reach the goal he set for himself. He wanted to complete it. He didn't. than basically just with diet. I didn't hear him talk about any big training regimen he was on. It sounded like all he really changed.
Cars. That's pretty active.
Well, it is, but he was hauling cars last year when he did this too. So nothing changed. He didn't fail and then go do some big training routine to get ready for it. All he said he did was he just ate different the month leading up to it and during it, and we went from a failure to a success. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It is really incredible. And like Paul was saying, about those people at the fair, and they're on government assistance because they can't work because they're too fat or too they let their bodies go. That's called the Tetler cycle, and that it can't last forever. It lasts till 51% of the people, 49% of the people are paying for the 51,
and that's when when a democracy collapses. Right, that's when a democracy collapses, we're getting there. And what's really scary? Look, when I hear, it was a bunch of senior citizens and they look unhealthy, but if you heard Paul's comment, he actually said, they look unhealthy,
they're all young,
but they look better than the young people, and he's not wrong. I'm appalled by what I saw watching these kids try to run. I just can't even get my head around that we have gotten to the point where a good percentage of our children are boy, I don't even want to say this, but almost they're subhuman when it comes to their physical abilities. That is so wrong that those kids are that awkward and weak and they can't run.
Kevin, I think it's I don't even think they have PE in school, elementary school anymore. And if they do, then it's supervised and make sure you're not throwing a ball at anybody or running.
Well, you know what?
Oh my God, you might trip and fall and hurt yourself.
You know what was really encouraging? I just got to visit with my 9-year-old grandsons. That was the reason for this trip. I'm so happy they are going to a private school. My son and their family makes a huge sacrifice to make that happen because private schools today are outrageously expensive. After COVID, that got worse because there's a lot of demand for private schools now. So they had a very hard time, getting the kids into the school to begin with. But I really liked what I'm hearing from them. They do still have PE, and it sounds exactly like the PE I remember from elementary school, which is pretty cool.
There's not a bunch of lunatic teachers running it.
And I look at these kids. They're just normal 9-year-olds, what I would consider normal 9-year-olds, except now they start to look abnormal because every other 9-year-old I see is right. This isn't normal anymore. I remember growing up where everybody in my peer group, in my class or whatever it was, could run normally. To think that
was slow, but I didn't look like I was mongoloided or anything. You know what I mean? And now when you see somebody run, you're like, oh my gosh,
it's awful. It's sad.
Just giggle a little bit, but it's sad.
Yeah.
And
it's not just the weight. I watch them and their body does not move in the proper way. Like
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Even the skinny kids can't run right. This was a commercial filled with skinny kids, which is unusual, but none of them ran properly.
They're like running flat-footed and turning their arms wrong.
Right, their arms aren't in sync with their legs, and their feet are weird, and they look like they're half falling over half the time. And I just look at that and I think that's so sad.
You couldn't run like that if you tried to.
No, I couldn't.
If you tried to, you couldn't run like that.
You could get me drunk and I'd run better than that.
Right. Hey, let me talk about Noel for a second. Noel's leaving out. The student loan payments come back.
Oh yeah, you're
October.
right.
That's going to be a big, huge hit.
That's
going to be commercial real estate.
Commercial real estate.
That's another huge hit.
Yeah. No, you're right. There, it is hard to find any good news about the economy.
it's going to be a bad crash because I mean you look at China. See now what people don't know, because real estate was big in China and those ghost cities. If you go ahead and Google the ghost cities, and I don't remember how many there are, but there's a lot of them. And they were selling real estate to pretty much anybody to try to get it on their books. That China's a hot market for, and real estate was the one place that people were putting their money. Well, in China, if you can't make your payment this month, they're all, well, you know what, you just make a phone call, I guess, and then they're don't worry about it, we'll just put it to the end of your loan.
Yeah.
So it's not affecting their credit score, but now they don't have that money coming in. And with BlackRock being so big in China, and I don't know if you can sell, I mean, they manage so much money, but I don't see them doing very well in the next coming 3 or 4 years.
No.
And so now you've got China doing bad. What are they going to do? They're going to go into Taiwan. When are they going to go into Taiwan? Well, they've got to go into Taiwan before Biden's out of office, because Biden's not going to be.
So one of the, at least, positives we might be able to take out of all this bad economic news was kind of how I started. We have an election coming up next year, and it's the economy, stupid. We talked about this last time. We expected the economy to kind of tank before the election. And had it may have changed things, but it didn't. The economy was still humming along. Everybody had money. And when that's the case, they don't look to make a lot of changes politically. Right? Why would they? They're happy. No. Their bills are paid. They're out partying. They've got money. That may be the difference this year. It's already one of the craziest elections I can imagine. And now if the economy starts to tank in 2024, that's going to change a lot politically.
Well, at the last minute, it's not people voting Democrats. People voting against Trump is what it is. So there's the people that love Trump and the people that absolutely hate him. So it's a vote against Trump. So what they're going to do, because Biden can't run again, and the clown that he's got as vice president, she's not going to be in there. So they've got to throw Big Mike in there. That's the only chance they have. And
don't forget Gavin.
Well, he'll be vice president.
Yeah, Gavin's got the star power.
He'll be vice president.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the media will sell up Michelle Obama, and we don't mind voting for a, Trump didn't have any political experience, going in there. But now what happens, with all the money that we're giving to the Ukraine, all the money that that's just going to completely disrupt our supply chain again when China goes into Taiwan. So there's a big issue there.
Yeah.
The UAW strike, it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. So that's huge. It's all going to happen. It's all going to come down at one time, and it's going to be a devastating depression. Not even a recession. I think it's going to be on the other side. And then Paul was saying, don't drive a Volvo. Volvo, compared to the Freightliner that I'm driving now, if I had Joe Morrow's Volvo instead of this thing, that's $500 a week in fuel alone that he's saving compared to the Volvo or Freightliner I'm driving.
Yeah. No,
so there's that.
It's hard to predict what's going to happen in trucking during this, but I think it could get extremely ugly. Let's go to South Carolina. Terrence, what's on your mind today?
What's up? I got a couple things. First thing, I'm sure you noticed, right? It's amazing, how the tribe helps people out. I reached out to Matt yesterday about a question about Vanguard, and he got back to me, and then he gave me his number, and I talked to him. So shout out to him for the help. But
I love that.
It's amazing, man. How,
I love that.
It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. Quick thing I was talking about with COVID again, like that. My fiance was supposed to go to work today after 5 days of not going in, and she was sick again this morning. But what I don't understand is how I'm not quarantined. Maybe I didn't test this time. I'm just curious. I got to lock it up to I mean, like I said, that copper and that silver and the way I've been eating, that's the only thing I can say was the reason why I didn't get it. It's just, I'm just saying I'm baffled by it. I'm like amazed by it that I didn't, I'm not sick,
I know. I think it's incredible. The last 8 or 9 years, no matter how much I'm around people who are really sick, other than that one time, I haven't been sick. And I think I identified why I got sick that time. I'd stopped all my supplementation on that trip, and my diet suffered while I was traveling, and lifestyle. I was staying up late. I was drinking more. I just wasn't taking care of myself like I normally do, and I got sick. I paid for it, but it wasn't COVID.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, she had, and the thing that sucks is she's been vaccinated.
Yeah. Well, of course.
She had to because of the job.
Of course. That's why she got it.
And then, now, like I said, I know. I told her that. And then, like I said, I thought she was over it. And then she called me this morning because she was going to go in at 9. And then she's like, I just was throwing up and all that. She was almost in tears. I was like, there's nothing I can do. I can't to make sure she's okay. But, it's just amazing that it's going. And like I said, she's just like lethargic. I should say lethargic. She's just not herself. You can tell it's running its course with her. But I don't know. I think that's just going to be another ugly turn to what you were talking about with the economy and all that. Just crazy. But like when you were talking about in like the early 80s, my first job was in 1983, and I worked at a garden center, and it was $3.25 an hour. That's what I was getting paid.
I remember those days.
And again, the same thing. It took me forever to get that job. You used to have to look in the paper, and you could call up. You could, you had a house phone. You call up, but they say come out and fill an application.
Exactly.
That day you were looking. Like you said, handwriting. There would be no typing.
And you waited for the Sunday paper because the Sunday paper had more jobs than any of the other days. Yep. So you waited for the Sunday paper to come, and then you sat down with the classified ads and you started to go through them. And this was week after week after week. And you could go fill out 20 applications for minimum wage jobs and never get a phone call.
Yep.
And,
all right, I'll let you go.
We're going to wrap it up. And we didn't have the Uber and DoorDash and all that other stuff to fall back on either.
Yeah, and again, that's another thing towards the economy too. Look at how many people switch to that.
I read an article, a post yesterday, and a guy said it's something along the lines of, "Isn't America wonderful?" He managed with an old car. He said, there is no reason to be hungry in this country. He said, I had nothing. He said, I've got an old car, and I manage every day to put gas in it, pay for the insurance, have enough to eat, and get a motel room. And we know how expensive that is if you can't afford an apartment. You have to live out of hotels. It sucks because it's the most expensive way to live for somebody who doesn't have any money. But the guy said with the gig economy, he is able to do that every day. He said, I'm still surviving. I have a pillow to lay my head down at night. I eat okay. And I'm doing it without a job. We never had an opportunity like that. You either had a job or you were broke.
Yeah, Right, but that's a person that wants to work because I mean, like I see it all the time too down here, and even in Wisconsin. Well, let me tell you something. Wisconsin was the worst. The people that didn't want to work up there, sucking off the government. It was like I'm getting up at 2:30 in the morning, doing 560 miles, at home every night, and there's some, I go to the grocery store on a Saturday, and there's people in, riding buggies, and and they go up there and they got an EBT card.
I know.
I'm not knocking people that use it, but it was abusive, man.
I'll
let you go.
Yeah. All right. I'll let you go. One more comment, and then we're going to bring in Rolling Toe here. Every once in a while, I'll grab a gluten-free pizza out somewhere. It's pretty rare, but the other day I was doing it, and I walked in as a Papa Murphy's where you get them raw and take them home. Certainly not the best thing I eat, but it's convenient once in a while. And somebody was in there, and they were having a really hard time at the cash register, and I'm standing there just waiting. It turns out they were trying to buy their pizza with some sort of a government card. I don't know what it was. And it was blocked. It's not allowed. And I thought, well, good. At least they block some things. Absolutely crazy if you are using my tax money to eat and you're trying to do it at fast food restaurants instead of buying staples and making your own food. I don't mind helping people that need help, except most of them don't want to do a damn thing to help themselves. And I think that's what aggravates most people. All right, we're going to wrap this up. The Becketts will be back with Rolling Toe in just a couple of minutes. I will see you back here tomorrow for Trucking Technology and Efficiency. We have no spaces this week. So I am done for today, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.